Okay, so welcome to the second edition of Pepper Presents for 2021. My name is Caroline Mirakian, Head of National Accounts at Pepper Money. Today's topic looks to discuss how brokers can generate more inquiries. We know that there's lots of opportunity available in today's market, and with increased demand, however, there is increased competition. So we've asked two very influential, renowned mortgage marketing minds to provide their insight on how to grow your client base in 2021. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Alex Hammond, Director of the Mortgage Market Alliance, who has been in the industry for nearly 20 years, so a guru of all mortgages, and Paul Hunt, Director of Square One Media, with a career spanning over 25 years, so another influential guru in the mortgage market. Welcome, gents. How are we today?
Welcome. Yeah,
Good,
no, very
you.
well.
Thanks for having me.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
Good. So the first question to you is, how do you think technology's impacted a broker's ability to generate new client inquiries? Alex, can I start with you, if I may, please?
Yeah, I mean, it starts, I think, right from the broker's own systems, really. If you look at, I think, if you're a broker, your CRM system and the way you manage your existing clients in your database, that's really crucial to generating future inquiries, because those clients you have now will be the source of many inquiries in the future. So it's how you manage those. It's your shop window with your website. It is then how you outreach to potentially new clients through social media, through advertising. It's much more accountable, and you can target much more easily with digital advertising than traditional means. And then how you stay in contact with your clients and potential new clients and leads as well with things like email. So it really, I mean, technology, all encompassing, it enables any business, and a broker business, I would say, particularly so. It really empowers you to do so much more from your desk and from your place of work, without having to have sort of the vast structure of a corporate entity behind you.
Thank you. And what about you, Paul? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. It was probably about a couple of years ago. There was some research done that a significant proportion of mortgage brokers still didn't have a website. And that was, I think it was around about sort of 30 odd percent of brokers still didn't have a website. Now things have moved on since then, but I still think that some of the basics really have to be done. From my experience when I was at Countrywide, however many sort of mortgage consultants in the estate agency offices, one of the things it's really clear is that how important having that physical presence. So we're talking about technology, but actually the physical presence of actually being on a high street has a huge part to play still, and I think will do as we come out of this pandemic, because lots of bank branches are closing, or sort of different sort of fewer hours in terms of opening hours, and so having that presence on the high street and in your local community is vitally important, and actually showing that digitally, whether that making sure your Google, your business is on Google, all the simple basics to start off with are really important, so that you can be seen and you can be found. And then you build on those basics, because then when you're starting to look at whether it be paid social or whatever, or whether it be Google Ads, whatever you decide to put some budget into, you need to have those basics right first.
No,
I think
agree.
to jump in, I think Paul's absolutely right in terms of, as a broker, what you are selling is trust. Basically, it's trust in your service, trust in your advice. And one way of doing that absolutely is to have a physical presence and to be seen as real. Like these guys are real. They've got something on the high street. I've looked this person in the eye. I trust him. I think he or her, obviously, they know what they're talking about. Absolutely. And so it's though that principle, I think, doesn't change whether you are marketing your business in the physical world or online. And that's really important to think. What you are selling is, would this help potential customers and clients to trust me and my advice? The first step I'd say when you step to digital is just make sure you get a decent website, and it doesn't have to be expensive. There are lots of services out there where you can play around with a template. You can buy a URL for not very much. And just a bit of time and not a lot of expertise, you can have a pretty serviceable website that makes you look professional. So absolutely, you need to invest in that trust, and the financial investment doesn't have to be that much.
No, that's a really, really good point. So would you say that the website then is the particular piece of technology that will be influential for growing a broker's customer base?
I suppose for me, I suppose it would be, it's about credibility, really. I mean, so if it's between you and the broker down the road or in another town, and they have a website and you don't, then does that make the decision a little bit easier for the person that's maybe looking to sort of pick up the phone? Something, yeah, maybe. And I think it is about different. Yeah, it is about not not falling at the first hurdle. And so especially again going back to the sort of pandemic, more people obviously will be looking online to establish whether the person that they want to interact with is credible. And so the first element is a bit of research. We've got to remember, all of us are working this, in sort of the property finance sector, and sometimes you take for granted the sector that you're in, but you've got to remember it's usually one of the most important financial transactions that anyone's likely to make. And so trust and credibility have to be very, very high, whether you're a lender, whether you're a broker, whoever you are, conveyancer, surveyor, whoever you are. So and a lot of that credibility has, especially now, has to be built on what they can find about you online. I think one of the things that I suppose we sort of didn't touch upon on sort of the previous answer is also about referrals are still very, very important. They're probably the most important important source of leads for any broker, and technology can help you manage those referrals too as well. So you should look at it in terms of where you're getting your leads from and how technology can support you in managing those.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Alex, are there any tips that you would give to brokers who are looking to position themselves as the go-to advisor in their local market?
Yeah, I think we've touched on trust and credibility. So actually, one of the things I would say is, and this is about digital, don't forget more traditional methods. One of the things that I've noted from my own behaviour is if there's a business that sponsors my son's rugby team, or puts something into the local community, I'm more inclined to see that business as an integral part of the community and something that's credible, and that I would just consider putting money. It's always just supporting someone that's supporting the community. So I think that's a good place. So don't overlook local sponsorships and involvement in the local community to begin with. Then when you look at how can you be seen as credible, absolutely, website, I would say, is a hygiene factor. You need to have someone, you need a shop window to go to. Then it's how do you start to sort of outreach and be seen to be someone who is on top of the market, and that then you can have opportunities to write some potentially some short blogs. There's a couple of comments on the market. You can use social media. I think Twitter seems to have been really adopted by brokers as a way of raising their own profile within the industry and with potential clients and customers, and just showing that they're on top of things. And the benefit of that is 140 characters. You don't have to dedicate an awful lot of time to it. To sit down and write a blog, it can be quite daunting, especially if that's not something that you're used to doing. With Twitter, there's a story on about the cladding today, and the government increasing the funding for that, and some of that potentially come from a property tax next couple of years. If you're a broker, all you have to do is share that with a couple of lines, or even something to think about if you're looking at moving home or something like that. and then you've just shown that you're on top of the market, and you're part of that. So there are definitely ways that you can do it. I would say the first thing is make sure your house is in order, housekeeping, your website, are you happy with that? And then start to reach out but take it a step at a time. Maybe share some stories first on Twitter before you start going in and engaging properly, and things like that. Just make sure you're comfortable with what you're doing, do that well, and then advance.
That's really good points, actually.
And actually, I think just on top of that, I think one thing that I've said to sort of people that I suppose very hesitant on social media. Some people are they are very hesitant, not quite sure what to say. There's no harm in being a voyeur to start off with, to register and just start following people and start understanding how the platform works, but also how people interact and maybe what your peers, how your peers use it, how your competitors use it, how your customers use it. There's no harm at all in doing that. The other thing I was going to add as well, and we haven't touched upon, customer reviews. Again, the sort of credibility and people sort of seeing whether you are credible. One of the things again. In previous roles, it can be quite confusing in terms of where you ask a customer to place a review. You could get it on Facebook, you could get it on Google, you could do Trustpilot, you could do FIFO, you could do Smart Money People. There are a variety of different methods, and what I think each have their merits, but stick to one. Don't dilute.
Good point.
Don't dilute where customers, because it is a process to get reviews and get favourable feedback, and for sometimes for a lot of instances outside of a broker's control, they will get negative feedback. That's part of the process. But having the ability to interact, take that any negative feedback offline immediately to try and then deal with that customer, I think is it's important to once you've stuck your head above the parapet, you have to stay there, but you have to be comfortable with a process that works for you as a business.
No, gosh, some really insightful feedback, stuff that I'm learning about as well. So we've talked about how to generate new inquiries, but let's not forget the importance of retention. So how can brokers ensure that they are gaining repeat business from their customers? Paul, over to you.
Hi. Again, that was actually one of my sort of key remits when I was marketing director at Countrywide for their financial services businesses. That was the exec really wanted me to sort of focus on retaining more customers. And look, I mean, the way I look at it is a lot of it's about communication. Historically, you would I don't know, you'd sell a mortgage on someone on a 2-year fixed, and then about 3 or 4 months before that 2-year fixed rate would come up for expiry, you drop them a note to say, oh, by the way, you haven't communicated with them for the 18 months prior to that, and then you expect them to remember the service. By that time, the lender may well have been in contact, someone else may be in contact, their circumstances may have changed, etc., etc. Retention's all about communication and engagement with customers, and that can be difficult. Rightly or wrongly, a lot of people will be focused on the new inquiries, the new leads, and less focus on existing client bank. Both are very, very important. Both are very, very important, and I think there are more tools out there to enable, rather than having spreadsheets. So you've got CRM systems out there that can manage retention. You've got the likes of Legible.ai, who are out there that have a marketing and sort of marketing system that effectively, it's not retention, it's marketing to your existing clients, which then means that you have an idea as to when they are more likely to come back to you to want to have the conversation about remortgaging or whatever it may be. So there are lots of tools out there, but don't think about don't think of it as retention per se. It is marketing. Actually, and if you market and if you engage and if you constantly inform your customers, you will automatically retain more.
Excellent. What about you, Alex? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, and I absolutely fundamentally absolutely agree with Paul, and I just build on that. Actually, I think if you're marketing your business, one way of helping that is by marketing more things. So if you are a broker who you advise regularly on residential remortgage purchase business, maybe a bit of buy to let, actually think about what other areas of the market you might be able to get involved in terms of advising on those products as well. Or maybe you could partner with another specialist in the area, or partner with a specialist distributor for that. Because then if you are going out and you're talking to your client bank about these different things, you could then talk about second charge mortgages. You could talk about bridging finance. You could talk about even commercial. Most brokers will have a significant chunk of self-employed clients. That's potential there for a commercial arm of your business, because those businesses will at some point probably need some finance. But once you start to be able to offer a sort of a more holistic form of advice across different types of borrowing, then absolutely you've got so many different reasons to go out and talk to people. And if it's even a regular email newsletter or something, there are different topics you can talk about. There are different angles. And what we do in marketing usually is just find an excuse to talk to people. And what an easy way of doing that is by offering more things. And you'll probably find that will help your clients as well, because they might be looking to build an extension and they may be in the middle of a ERC period. And they may not know the options. They may not know about second charge mortgage. They may not know other ways of doing it, of financing it. And so if you can provide those solutions, or just talk about potential sort of ways of using finance, then you're going to help grow your own business.
No, that's really useful. Yeah, I mean, so slightly digressing, do you think there are any areas of the market this year that are kind of going to be growing or emerging, I guess, more?
I mean, actually, I'm just sort of build on what Alex was saying. Actually, I think the value of advice throughout this pandemic, especially starting with sort of payment holidays and everything else that's happened, and some uncertainties around people's employment and income. The value of advice for me has never been clearer. And never be more apparent, and so I think for the broker community, we've often sort of talked about the sort of 70 to, for some lenders, 80% and more in terms of their distribution being weighted towards the intermediary market. But I think there is a huge opportunity for brokers, because I think people throughout this pandemic, maybe because of this pandemic, actually have become aware of the value of advice, which maybe wasn't as clear, despite all the numbers in terms of from a distribution, than they were before. So I think as a wider channel, from a mortgage perspective, I think there are huge opportunities for brokers to engage more with their customers, and and build on the fact that the value of advice is better understood now than maybe it was 12 months ago.
Yeah, no, agreed.
I think there are lots of opportunities this year. I'd say a really big and a fundamental one is when we came out of the downturn that was the global financial crisis. There are a lot of headlines about the restriction on mortgage lending. It was so difficult to get a mortgage. We're seeing some similar headlines now in terms of there's some stuff about high LTVs towards the end of last year. I think the narrative now is around self-employment. What people generally read, especially when it comes to financial services, because it's not that interesting, what they read is headlines. And if they're being met with headlines saying, oh, it's tough to get a mortgage or self-employed, it's going to be difficult. they can write themselves out of the market. I can't be bothered with that because it's just going to be too difficult. And so I think one of the things that sort of the Mortgage Market Alliance and one of the reasons we pulled that together was that it's just a bit of realism that if we can get a message out to people that if you look beyond those headlines, it might be a bit tougher than it was a year ago, but actually for the majority of people, it's still, there are still opportunities there, and there are still ways that you can finance your objectives when it comes to home buying and things like that. Absolutely. So I think brokers have an opportunity, to grow their business and reaching out and by being proactive in their community and saying that there are mortgage lenders out there who want to lend to people who have different types of circumstances, and they understand that some people have been on furlough, and they understand that some people have had to take payment holidays, and they have really sophisticated models and professional experts who understand these things and can make then these decisions on the back of those and in consideration to those things. I think that message needs to get out to people, and it needs to get out via us as an industry as a whole, but also brokers can do that just by even just having conversations with, and not at parties because you're not allowed to go to parties, but just like if you're having a conversation, don't be afraid to ask. There are usually options in this market. It's very competitive. It's highly regulated, so that it's going to be there's going to be fair options, and they're going to be ones that are absolutely transparent, and you can understand everything about it. And so so coming back to it, the opportunity is there for brokers, but I think it's also there for customers to realise that we've been through and we are going through a really difficult time, a time of massive transition, but that doesn't, on the whole, need to really derail people's objectives when it comes to home buying and refinancing.
Yeah, and actually, I was sort of in terms of, because both of us are old enough to have gone through at least one financial crisis. I think I've probably gone through about 2 or 3, but that's probably more about me than it says about the market. I think, you look, where it was 13, sort of 12, 13 years ago, the people didn't have money to lend. The markets are closed. This is a very, very different scenario. The sort of the finance sector, and especially the property finance sector, has been out there, pretty much sort of throughout this pandemic, and will be fundamental to the recovery of our economy as we start to exit. So I think we shouldn't be ashamed about working in this sector and this industry, and I think, like I said, we've got a fundamental role to play in helping our customers and people sort of out of this sort of current scenario.
No, completely agree. Well, thank you very much for that. That's it. Sadly, time, folks. So thank you very much to both you and Alex and Paul for all your time, and genuinely thank you very much from Pepper Money for all your support. That's it. Everybody, hopefully we'll see you next week in the next Pepper Presents series.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thanks, Caroline. Bye-bye.
Cheers.